So we have something brand new and very, very interesting to talk about in today's video that hopefully will be a change of pace from a lot of the things that we have been talking about that's been happening inside of the US. And it's really going to be all about in today's update about China's economic collapse situation that many, many people all over the internet have been talking about lately. So I figured I kind of want to give my personal opinion, especially as someone that maybe also has roots in China, so can maybe give a little bit on the cultural side about what this specifically means. So hopefully there's something unique. But the big idea is that you might be wondering, maybe you're in the US, about why we should possibly care about all of this stuff or why this is important. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But the big idea is that I want to talk today a lot about what's been going on in China, because first off is that they're going through a lot of difficulties right now. And the big idea is that what's going on in China right now is actually something that the US has actually experienced before. However, they are now going through it in some, let's just say, exponential magnitude, even more crazier than what we had to go through several years ago during the Great Recession. And even more so beyond that is that at the very, very end of the day, the biggest reason why this is so particularly important is that regardless of personal opinion, here in the US, and really actually many countries around the world, we still do rely on China for a lot of resources. Think about how many products that you guys might use that literally say made in China, and that is why we should potentially care as well. Think about how many YouTubers will probably try to make some kind of finance video talking about how they've been drop shipping or literally buying things from Alibaba, which literally is a company with products from China. And I think at the end of the day, if you happen to be from the US and you're going through some sort of difficulty, and we obviously are going through a lot of things right now with the inflation, potential recession, a declining stock market, everything, and I'm totally with you there because I'm in the US living it with every single person there. When I go grocery shopping, which actually literally just happened not that long ago, I see the prices, and it's very, very crazy what's been going on. But by understanding what's going on in a foreign country that maybe is going through something even more drastic, we can maybe have some level of gratitude to know that while we might be, going through our own situation, there's other people that are going through something even more extreme and more crazier. And I think it's just interesting to know if you want some personal insight and you're out of the loop of what's been happening there. So we are going to get started, but as always, real fast before we begin, if you guys are brand new here, welcome along. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell, or you can watch to the end to decide. If you guys have been here for a while, huge thanks for coming by, especially because today obviously is going to be a unique change of pace topic, so hopefully to give something fresh. And of course, as always, feel free to comment any questions, maybe personal thoughts about what you think about this situation. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So we're going to start by maybe talking a little bit about what actually is physically going on inside of China to maybe get everyone on the same page and loop. But essentially the story is that right now in China, they are going through a massive potential collapse because of the current housing bubble that they're currently going through. So all you really have to know about what this is that they're basically going through what we went through back in 2008-9 with the massive real estate market crash that we experienced, except they are now going through with it, let's just say potentially about 10 folds or just significantly higher magnitude, in the sense that the biggest difference between what we went through and what happened back then is that the way the housing bubble really started is that we essentially had a situation here in the US at that time period where a lot of banks were just basically lending money left and right to not every single person, but just many people in our country, to people that maybe didn't even really have the potential to be able to afford or pay off these homes, driving up the prices, and then eventually leading everything to pop and just fall all the way to the ground. But the biggest difference is that in China right now, here in 2022, they are going through something very, very similar now, but there is a cultural aspect that we are going to talk about in a bit, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about now. But the story in China is that we now have a massive wave of tons of people in China that have been essentially purchasing homes very similar to what happened in the US, borrowing money from the bank. But the biggest difference is that many of the homes that people are buying currently inside of China, or were buying, until the collapse or the situation that we're currently in is happening, They were homes that didn't even exist. They were basically just homes that were essentially just, they were plans created to make these particular homes. And so this is what we basically call a little bit of like a ghost town. And the idea really is that inside of China, they wanted to create a real estate boom. So our governor essentially, well, the governor in China, essentially what they did is that the banks and everyone inside of China decided to buy lots of land and put up buildings. But the problem is that in order to generate the money, they had to sell a lot of property. So how this particularly works is that imagine if you're a bank and you're now starting to sell property, but the difference is that the property that you're trying to sell doesn't even exist, but people are just consistently buying and buying and buying and buying and buying over and over again. And then eventually now we have a whole bunch of different homes that have never even physically been built that people are already starting to pay their mortgage on, but people that are not even particularly qualified, because again, keep in mind, the banks are lending money to people that might not even have the potential to physically pay off everything. And that is when they can't afford to pay their mortgages and their bills. So that is when, oh snap, essentially happens, and we drive up the prices, and it's now expected to become one of the largest real estate bubbles to crash in the entire history of just real estate bubble crashes. And that is really the background story to what's happening in China right now. Now, there is a little bit of a cultural side to why this is really happening that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and it's really about how important housing and real estate is in China. The background story is that in the Chinese culture, one of the biggest things is that there is a very particular amount of pressure in order to become a homeowner. The biggest difference is that in the US, there are obviously a lot of people that maybe also have pressure because they really want to buy a home. But because we know that real estate in the US is so expensive right now, for people that don't want to buy a home, they just don't buy a home. Additionally, another big difference is really about how people invest their money. In the US, especially in this time period, because we know that real estate is so expensive, that now there has been a massive shift in popularity where people look at real estate, and when they see a one-bedroom apartment for $1 million, and this is a very realistic representation of where I'm filming this, which is in New York City, a $1 million for a one-bedroom apartment, that's when people are just like, screw it, we're going to go into the stock market. They're going to basically invest in things like the stock market. This is an example of a graph I know that really shows how people really invest their money around the world. As you can see, is that in the US, there are people that invest in things like bonds, real estate, crypto, stocks, and they really try to diversify. The problem is that in China, culturally, everyone there is significantly more focused on real estate. So instead of having that diversity, they really only see real estate as the biggest place to be able to park their money, which goes back to that's really the big issue, how we're getting into everything now, is that because they don't really diversify a lot of their assets and they put everything into real estate, that is why it drives up the real estate prices, and we are going through this. But the biggest difference is that there's a cultural reason to it and why it's currently going through. For a lot of people, sometimes in the US, we have something called a 401k. In China, for many people, their retirement is real estate. It's to buy real estate and hope that the prices go up and then they can sell, and that becomes their retirement money. So it's just a little bit of a cultural thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, that I think is just really important to maybe try to address. So the big idea really is that in the US, I think the beautiful thing about our country is that even though we are going through a lot of difficulties, at least when it comes into the real estate world, there's a really interesting balance between people that want to become homeowners and then people that just are cool with renting. They just want to rent, or people that are just, living off of government housing, which again, the idea is that there's just a lot of different ways to try to create shelter in the US. But in China, again, going back on the other hand is that there is not a very strong support for renting, but there is a massive support of trying to become a homeowner because of image reasons, because of reputation, and as mentioned, because of cultural reasons. For many people, when it comes to things like marriage, dating, social status, real estate is a very particularly big focused topic inside of China, and I think that's the biggest thing that's important to address. And it's really actually because of all of the stuff that's going on right now in China. Hopefully, this kind of basically paints a picture that because the US underwent something similar, we can maybe use this as a little bit of a learning experience of what we should not do here in the US. And also, again, I think the big idea is that because I know there are a lot of people going through a lot of things right now, maybe we can use this to show a little bit of a gratitude that, even though it might be very difficult in the US, it might be very, very particularly difficult to do all of these things that I just mentioned, the big idea is that at least we have lots of resources, we have government programs, unemployment, things like that. Whereas in China, it's essentially, they do have social programs as well, but it's just a very, very different way that they particularly do things. And because if everything in China truly does collapse, it is possible that there might be stocks, Chinese stocks inside of the stock market that potentially delist. If you have roots in China, this is going to potentially be impacted. A lot of things, if things fall, a lot of the resources are going to potentially be impacted. Things such as, like, again, the things we buy, products, things made in China, their economy, foreign relationships, all of this stuff is going to be on the line. And that's why I think it's really, really particularly important that every single person really gets an idea about what's going on over there. So with that being said, is I think that's pretty much what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So I know it's a little bit of a change of pace, but it was just something I felt very inclined to share. I know that, obviously because this is a change of pace, maybe not as many people will be here, but if you guys made it to the end, maybe feel free to leave a comment because you guys are the best. And of course, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well. Remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully found that insightful. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.